Welcome to another Midas Letter RAW! I just about knocked myself off the stool that time.
Yeah.
We're here as usual with my good friend Polski Ed Ogorski, Special Head Mileski. Special Head Mileski.
Yeah.
And today we have quite a lineup. Our guests today are going to include Matt Stang. He's the CEO of DELIC Holdings, Inc., yet another psychedelic corporation. Is there a theme recurring through our show? Perhaps yes, perhaps no. Do we like our drugs? Yes, we do. Why are we so happy? We're on drugs.
No, we're not for me.
Oh, no drugs?
No.
You've been on the wagon?
Yep. What do you call it? I understand it's called on the wagon if it's booze, but what do you if you stop smoking pot for a while? What do you call that?
On the magic carpet.
Off the magic carpet.
Well, like on the wagon means you're not drinking,
right?
Which makes no sense.
On the magic carpet.
Shouldn't it be off the wagon?
Yeah.
I'm not on that bandwagon of non-drinkers. Yeah. I'm on the wagon of...
You remember where that came from?
No, I have no idea.
It's English. It's gallows. When you were going to get hung, you had the driver would stop, let you off, have one last drink, so you'd get off the wagon to have a drink. Then you get back on the wagon.
Oh, that's just brutal.
I know. Listen. They didn't take prisoners back then. They just said, get rid of them.
That's scary stuff. We have Ben Samaru. He's the CEO of WonderFi Technologies, Inc., which is a company that's actually named after Mr. Wonderful himself, Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah, I see Kevin is getting lots of TV action in the U.S.
Is he? Yeah, well, he's become a business celebrity down south.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, good for him.
Good for him, yeah. And then Tal Hayek joins us. If you haven't heard that name before, it's probably because he's got his head down and works harder than any man I know in the advertising business. AcuityAds Holdings, Inc. He is the co-founder of and CEO. I first interviewed Tal back in 2014. I think the stock was trading at 80 cents.
And today?
$10 on NASDAQ. Not bad.
He still got his head down.
Yeah, that's right.
He's going
I
to
wish
20.
I bought more. Edward, I wanted to quickly comment on the U.S. Federal Reserve Chairman's statement at the conclusion of their two-day Open Market Committee meeting. And a couple of interesting little tidbits in there. Among them, where is it? This little gem here. The committee decided to keep the target range for the federal funds rate at 0 to 1/4% and expects it will be appropriate to maintain this target rate until labor market conditions have reached levels consistent with the committee's assessments of maximum employment and inflation has risen to 2% and is on track to moderately exceed 2% for some time. Is that the very definition of a run-on sentence or what?
You know.
A lot of concepts in there. I could have made 3 sentences out of that.
It's like no matter what they do, they want to do something else to get to somewhere where it looks like they can't get to.
Well, this is the thing. There's the U.S. 10-year rate.
Yeah.
It's at 1.53.
You see, there's that action there when COVID hit and it plummeted, and then now we're back to where the bottoms are along that, I don't know how many years that is, or a year. So yeah, as long as we stay above that 145, 150, the next move will be to two, I think. Right.
And the Fed also says in this statement that the expectation should be for inflation down the road, but we'll get to that. But the next statement in this this rather lengthy, windy missive is very revealing. In addition, the Federal Reserve will continue to increase its holdings of Treasury securities by at least $80 billion per month and of agency mortgage-backed securities by at least $40 billion per month until substantial further progress has been made towards the committee's maximum employment and price stability goals. Now, so they're going to keep printing $120 billion a month of Tier 1 capital into the banking system, which is fractionally banked out at least 10x at the top tier commercial banks.
Fractional backing.
So it's $1.2 trillion of additional liquidity per month. And are there $1.2 trillion of new assets available to buy every month?
Well, I don't know. Are there?
I don't know either. That's a good question, though.
You know what? I think someone said this week that the Feds basically bought all the bonds that were issued the last month. The Fed bought, like,
right.
You know,
so they're basically cutting checks to themselves once again. But so at the Fed has been basically telegraphing to the markets that commodities price inflation is transitory.
In other words,
just passing through.
Because of COVID. They basically tying it to the problems that COVID caused, shortages, you know, inability to get supply.
So COVID definitely caused supply chain choke
That's
points.
what they're saying, yeah.
Yes. However, so lumber has halved since its high of 1700.
Yes.
It's now trading at 835 per thousand board feet.
835.
835. Let's pull up that chart quickly. Here it is. Look at that.
You'd think you'd want to step in there.
Well, except it's a futures market, which means you have to put up a lot of liquidity just to play ball, and at any moment the regulator can change the liquidity.
I know.
Requirements.
I don't know. That looks like a definite round trip to me. From that level to what did we get to? 18? Did we get to 18 or 17 or something like that?
Well, it was just under 18. 17, here it is, 17.
Okay.
17,
and here we are now at 8 and change?
$841.
But doesn't that look like, I didn't think we'd see 800, and here we are seeing 800, so maybe.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to call Grand Erie Home Hardware right now, and I'm going to find out what the price of lumber is for a 2x4. Let's just see if the price has come down a bit here and see what happens.
You're buying 2x4s all the time, right?
Well, not lately.
We can't afford them.
Well, no, I'm waiting for the price to
come down.
Grand Erie Home Hardware, this is Chris. How can I help you?
Hi, Chris. Could I have the lumber desk, please?
I'll give him a page. 1 sec.
Thank you. Hey, how's it going? Jordan, I'm just looking at the commodities price random length per thousand board feet of fir, and it's down to $845 per thousand board feet from its high of $1,732 earlier in May. I'm wondering, is there any price decrease in the retail price of lumber at your store at this point?
No, it hasn't happened yet because we've stocked up to meet the spring demand. So until we could buy back cheaper, I don't think that our retail prices have gone down per se. They've stopped going up, but they haven't gone down.
Okay. Do you anticipate that there will be weaker demand on the retail side as customers sort of go, well, now the price is coming down, I'm going to hold off buying until the price comes down?
Yeah. I mean, Nathan would probably speak better to that than I would, but I mean, we've been crazy busy still, so I haven't really seen it slow down locally at the local level. Maybe nationally it has, but.
All right. Well, thanks for that. I'll see you soon. I'm looking forward to coming back in the store.
Yeah, we'll be happy to have you.
All right, see you soon.
All right,
at the
yeah,
cash
talk
register.
to you later.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
So there you have it.
Yeah.
Retail prices aren't going down because the
they
store's
bought
stocked up.
Yeah, they got to load up because they're afraid it's going to go higher. So there's a lag, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is now, I wonder if you call the sawmill, are they going to be still, so they didn't stock up. They didn't cut down more trees. They can't cut any more trees than they did. So are they now selling lumber at this price? And we're going to call a sawmill when we come back after our first guest here. And our first guest is Matt Stang of DELIC Holdings. Hey there, Midas Letter subscribers. My guest now is Matt Stang. He's CEO of DELIC Holdings. Matt, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet, it's great to have you. Matt, let's start with an overview. What does DELIC do?
Sure. So DELIC is the first ever psychedelic wellness corporation. We're focused on mainstreaming psychedelic wellness. We've essentially completed 2 deals. One is a large lab business with a psilocybin license from Health Canada. The other one is a chain of ketamine clinics in the southwest of America. And the plan is to be the largest ketamine provider in America, and behind that, the largest psychedelic wellness provider in America. And so that's where we're going to be in the next 24 months.
Wow. Okay, that's pretty concise. Okay, so ketamine. How is it that ketamine came to be a legal product in the medical arsenal of mental health professionals?
Great question. So ketamine's been safely in use as an anesthetic for almost 60 years. And what some really interesting doctors found in the last 20 or so years is that it has an incredible power to help really reboot your brain. I like to say it's a reset, right? You're giving yourself a PTSD reset. So if you have a computer, like we're on this computer and our internet doesn't work, or our audio doesn't work correctly, what do? We reboot it, and sometimes it'll work, right? And that's what we found with ketamine. Now, ketamine is very personal for me because my wife and co-founder has had an anxiety disorder for most of her life, and we found ketamine about 2.5 years ago, and it's been an incredible transformative substance, and you know, the psychedelic wellness around it has helped change her life for the better immensely, and so that's really why we've embarked on this. So ketamine, what it does is it disassociates you from your trauma, from your depression, from your anxiety. And, you know, I like to use a bunch of analogies because it's hard to describe exactly, but, you know, you pull yourself out of that rut and you're now not stuck in that rut. You reset your brain and you're not stuck in your trauma or your PTSD or your depression. And what it allows is it allows people over that hour and a half session timeline to actually disassociate from their issues. And over the course of a multi-treatment regimen, people have been found to have incredible results. Like, you know, treatment-resistant depression is now no longer holding them down. They're not stuck in a morass. They're not in this blue period where they can't get out of their house. It's incredibly beneficial. And it is the only legal psychedelic available right now. So, you know, we're working on, obviously, psilocybin and MDMA coming out behind it, but we think that ketamine on its own is an incredibly powerful and beneficial substance. And the other piece to this is that we've had 1.5 years of some of the most traumatic time that any of us alive really remember. What does that do? That gives a lot of people PTSD, right? And depression. And we've seen this for the last year. There's been a drumbeat of stories about suicides going up and depression going up and disconnection. All of these things have no real pharmaceutical treatment, and this is the problem, right? You have the pharmaceutical companies have no substance that really helps people beyond, you know, you look at the current crop of psychopharmacopoeia and you're getting a 4 to 5% improvement, meaning that 4 to 5% of people are better at the end of each year than they were when they started. So when you look at things, when there's something an order of magnitude better, it will win and it will change the entire world. And that's where we are right now. We're at the beginning, we're in the first or second inning of that change. And we want to be the infrastructure play, the cash flow play for psychedelics. We don't look at this as a 7-year biotech business. We have clinics that cash flow, that make millions of dollars, and we really want to show people the opportunity to invest in that infrastructure play around psychedelic wellness.
Wow, that's pretty full plate you got there. I'm curious as to, so you acquired ketamine infusion centers. How many patients are you servicing currently?
So each clinic services somewhere in the 80 to 100 people a month range, and the way that this works is that the standard course or protocol is a 6-week infusion session once a week, and then boosters every month to 3 months as needed. And so what people will get is this, as I said, a reset. So we have new patients coming in fairly frequently, and then the people who are there stick around for about a 6-week cycle, and then they come back as needed to reset their brain again to help them with the anxiety, mood disorder, PTSD, treatment-resistant depression. And it's really, what I love about it is that it's not, you're not stuck on a pill, you're not stuck on a MAOI or one of these SSRIs that that leave people with no up or down, no ability to be creative, no scope of life. They're just kind of stuck in this blah middle, and they're not better, they're not worse, they're just kind of living, and they're not really sure why. And I think that it's just so powerful to show people that there's another option. And so when we look at this, the reason we think scaling is so interesting is that a really good cash flowing clinic has like 100 patients a month in that flow. So you really don't need that many people. So it's something that has not infinite scale, but a lot of room to grow, because it's still so new and niche, and people don't know about it. And so just, what we've really built, and I think this is super important, is this ecosystem. So we have a website that gets 400,000 or so people a month who are looking for information about psychedelic wellness. We have an event called Meet DELIC, which comes up in November. That's the premier psychedelic wellness event. And what we've done is we've built this ecosystem so that people who are looking and trying to discover can then find, learn, and actually do at our clinics. And so we think that that really gives us a leg up, because we own our own ecosystem. We're not at the mercy of some large, faceless technological conglomerate that can either feed you people or not, depending on if they agree with what you're doing or not. And I think that's super important as you're building out into a new and nascent industry. And it's also important, my background was an owner and operator of a company called High Times for many years. And the thing that was super important was, as things went from black to gray to white, was giving people a sense of what the best in class was, right? And that's what, as a media platform, we did. And we helped build these billion-dollar brands. So what we've built here is a media and events platform that funnels into best-in-class brands that people can go and actually touch and feel and get serviced and get well. That's kind of the end point of the customer journey to us.
Sure. Interesting. So what is the ketamine experience like for a patient? Like what happens when they walk in the door? How long are they there? What kind of experience is it? And then when do they leave, and how do they feel afterwards?
Sure. So it's about, I'd call it somewhere between an hour and a half to 2 hour experience. You go in, you need someone to drive you or an Uber to take you home, because you should not be driving or operating a mechanized vehicle for 6 to 12 hours after you do the therapy. And so you go into the office. If you've already set up the program and you've been prescribed and you've dealt with a doctor, so there, if you're a first-time patient, there's the work of making sure you're a good fit for it, making sure that your mental health is checked. This is all FDA compliant and very regulated. If you're already in, you get an IV. So someone puts a small needle in. You have a bag with the ketamine, and it slowly dilutes into your body over the period of about an hour. You have, a room, you have music, and you have the space to kind of disassociate. So I think the best way to put it is you're kind of letting go of your ego. Some people describe it as an out-of-body experience. Some people describe it as a floating experience. But what it does is it turns off that part of your brain that engages in neuroses, that engages in depressive or obsessive compulsive. It helps a lot with people who have obsessive drug abuse or drinking, because it's really good at turning off neurotic behavior. And what happens is you have this experience for about an hour. You bring your own playlist, you have an enjoyable experience, you have someone who kind of holds the space, makes sure that you're okay, checks up on you, you talk a little bit about your issues, and then you walk out after about an hour and a half, and you're now in this place of, okay, I can feel what my life would be like if I wasn't stuck in this depression or this compulsion. And it's incredibly powerful, because a lot of people, the brain is incredibly strong, but a lot of people feel stuck or trapped inside of their brain. And if you can't see that there's another option, you really don't know there is. And this is why I think psychedelics will be mainstream rather quickly, because people who find this therapy are so blown away. The people who are in need of this therapy, let me be clear, this is not everybody, but the folks who have OCD, PTSD, treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, when they find this and they're able to kind of let go of the stuff that's been holding them back so strongly for so long, it's an incredibly cathartic experience. And then they have days at a time where they feel, wow, life is bright and sunny and happy and wonderful. And what the process of 6 times in 6 weeks does is it functions as a brain trainer. I kind of say, like, you're training your brain to operate in a different modality. And it really does work. And people, we have a bunch of incredibly happy patients from our clinic. And it's just, veterans have been one of the biggest, populations that have been served by the clinic, because it's just such a, you have so much anxiety and PTSD from serving in the armed forces, fighting, going to war, and it literally can change your brain in that way. So it's just so incredible. Like, watching people having this feedback, having my wife change in front of my eyes is just really incredible. And we think there's just such an opportunity to really make this both mainstream and accessible. So the business we bought is really focused on making it accessible. We want to make it, accessible to folks who aren't the top 0.01%. We love those folks too, but we think that there's a, tens of millions of people for whom this is necessary. And you can't do that by charging $5,000 cash out of pocket. People, it's not accessible. So we're working on insurance. We're working on, there's a form of ketamine that was created by Johnson & Johnson that is covered by insurance, called S-ketamine, that showed incredible promise for treatment-resistant depression. And so we're just working on making this as affordable and accessible as possible to folks who need this, right? And I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah, that's sounds amazing, Matt. We're going to have to leave it there for now, though. I'm going to look forward to talking to you some more about this. It's a fascinating topic, and I'm a huge supporter of the whole psychedelic movement, because I think that my general mental well-being is largely derived from my experimentation in the psychedelic realms throughout my life. So I think everybody should do some every day, personally, but that's just me. But thanks for your time, Matt. We'll come back to you soon, and I really look forward to seeing DELIC do well. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You bet. Bye for now. Ed, another psychedelic man, Matt Stain. Did you know he was the guy who ran High Times? Nah? No, you didn't, did you?
No,
now you do.
No, I didn't.
I know, but he's quite an impressive guy.
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah.
Do you remember we had his wife on the show way back in 2019, I think it was? And at that point, DELIC I believe she was talking about it as a conference or something, and Matt makes reference to that they're having this Meet DELIC conference. Anyways, share price is not done very well, as we can see here.
Yeah.
Sort of had a nice run up to 75 cents back in February, and now sucking hind tit at 32 here. But maybe that's a good entry point.
Chart looks like it could be a bottom. It could be a bottom here that we saw,
like
maybe
it's bumping along the bottom there.
Is that a month? Is that a how?
That's
8
going
months,
back
9 months?
to that's year to date.
Okay.
Year to date.
Yeah. Look, you know what? One thing we know is they just don't go one way.
What doesn't go one way?
Anything.
Well,
goes both ways.
What if you're on a one-way street?
What about time?
Time?
What if you're going backwards on a one-way street?
Time is on my side.
DELIC being the last part of psychedelic.
Psychedelic. Yeah, DELIC being the last part of psychedelic. You know who Michael J. Burry is?
Yes.
Who?
He's the guy that predicted the eventual wipeout back in 2007 of the the Ponzi scheme with the AAA rated
housing market bonds.
Yeah.
He shorted the housing market.
I read the book.
I
know. No.
He made $1 billion on that.
Well,
bet.
he
didn't
figured
just
out.
Predict it.
He figured out.
He did it.
I know he did.
So, anyways, he's got a lot of cred. You go to his Twitter page.
Yeah.
And he calls himself Cassandra.
Really?
Now, do you know what the mythological connotation of Cassandra is?
A bit of an all-knowing person?
Something like that. Anyways, Michael J Burry on June 15th tweeted, "People always ask me what is going on in the markets. It is simple. It is the greatest speculative bubble of all time in all things by 2 orders of magnitude." Did you really need to throw on the by 2 orders of magnitude at the end there? That's kind of like greatest speculative bubble of all time in all things, sort of captured it succinctly. And then you add by 2 orders of magnitude, and it's like, just 2? You sure it's just 2? Maybe not 1.75, maybe times 10, maybe times 20. If you consider the total value of all assets traded in 1800s versus the total value of all assets traded today, do you think it's 2 orders of magnitude or 100 orders of magnitude? No offense, Michael. I'm sure you're a very smart investor, but your math is a little off on this one.
I think what he's saying is that he thinks it's not twicely overvalued. He thinks it's 3 times overvalued. You know, like.
Oh, I see.
Like, you know.
Oh, it's overvalued by 2 orders of magnitude.
I think that's what he's saying. I think.
Okay, so
like,
that's interesting.
So let's say we you know, like basically that means that if the market's 10,000, it could go to 3,300 to get back to normal.
3,300. Our viewer Ross wrote to us and said, "Hi, James and Ed. What are your thoughts on Michael Burry's tweet this week, and how should an amateur investor, not trader, respond?"
Go to cash.
Go to cash.
No, look, like what's going to benefit? You know, their rates didn't go up much. I mean, they've been here for a few months.
Yeah.
But the perception now has changed. Gold's down almost 5%. Silver's down almost 6% today.
Copper's down copper's down now 6%.
Today it's only down, but it was down,
from its high of
it's about
480.
14%.
Yeah.
14%. 15% from the top.
Okay, so that is basically bear market territory.
No, 20% is bear market territory.
Well, so we're getting there, though.
We're close to bear market territory.
All right, so my response to Ross would be, Ross, never respond to what somebody says on Twitter, ever. I think the market is like, okay, so we're talking price. The price of assets is definitely higher than the value of assets, unless, of course, the price is what somebody is willing to pay. Because at the end of the day, the value of a thing is what somebody is willing to pay.
But in a bubble, it seems no one tries to discern what they're paying. Is it right? Like nobody seems to care.
Well, price is always relative. Price is always relative to what it was the day before. And price is always relative to what it's going to be tomorrow. So as an investor, you're trying to capture the difference between buying low and selling high. Unlike most investors I know, including myself, a lot more of the time than I'm really that happy to admit, I like to buy high and sell low.
No. A lot of people like to go in chasing a big move up, thinking, oh, it's going to keep going, right?
Yeah. And then it turns on them, and they panic and bail, locking in the loss instead of weathering what is usually a temporary storm.
If it starts going back up again, they start feeling comfortable. Okay, I can go back in now. And then, let's do it.
Remember that tweet that Donnie sent us that was, so I bought this stock, and it started going up, so I bought some more. And it kept going up, so I bought some more. But then it went down, so I sold it. And it kept going down, so I bought some more. And then it kept going up, so I bought some more. But then it went down, and I
guess you're going to tell me the whole thing.
I was going to, but I thought, we're running out of time.
Okay, we're running out of time.
Running out of time. Everybody's running out of time. You're running out of time. We better talk a lot faster because we're running out of time, Ed.
I have about a week's less time than I did a week ago.
No kidding, eh? All right, so that's Michael Burry. Now, Michael Burry, the couple interesting thing about him is he deleted all his tweets after this last tweet. Deleted all of his tweets. He has 520,000 followers, and he follows no one, which is a big, I'm the biggest swinging dick in this hotel, so get out of my way. And then the interesting thing on his actual Twitter page, where did it go now? He's got this screenshot of his networks outside, and it basically shows that, okay, this is, where am I going to find this? Oh, there's us. Following.
So you got some followers, and you got
a few followers.
Yeah.
So here's the let's go to his. So he's got this screenshot as his banner, which is a screenshot off of a phone by the looks of things of the networks available to him by Wi-Fi. And he's got one called FBI surveillance van. outside of his house, and so perhaps out of an abundance of
Do
caution.
you think that's the FBI called their network FBI surveillance?
No, it's probably some joker in the community just
Right.
having a laugh. But interesting, though, that he would delete all of his tweets.
I think, if you say something and you've got a big following and it doesn't sort of match up with what the Fed and all the big banks are talking about,
Right.
Because they're all in cahoots, right?
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Then
Well,
you may
so-
get a phone call. You may get a phone call and say, hey, rethink your strategy.
Right. Elon Musk comes to mind. Elon Musk famously manipulated the stock price of his own company by declaring that he was going to take it public at, was it $4.50 a share? This was like a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And that he had the money. And he didn't have any money. And he didn't plan to take it private.
Yeah.
And he basically bumped the share price up past what he said he was going to take it private at. Through doing that, the SEC called him out on it. What did he get?
Slap on the wrist.
Stop it.
You-
Stop
you-
it right now.
Did you-
Stop it.
Did you see now that he's sold all his real estate?
Yeah, the thing about Elon is I don't really believe what I hear him say.
Right.
Because he says so much that is not true. In other words, the guy is like, he's a rich, full of shit guy, but he's a full of shit guy in many respects.
But he's made his own money.
Well, he's obviously made a shit ton of money.
Yeah, he
and
was
I'm not
involved in
jealous about
something
that.
before Tesla.
Yeah.
What was he involved in?
PayPal.
There was.
Yeah,
really?
he was a PayPal's where he made his first big score, apparently. This is what I'm told. I could be wrong. I don't know. I don't know Elon. He never responds to my calls. I ordered a truck off him 2 years. He's failed to deliver so far.
Yeah.
Even though I ordered the most expensive model. I pointed out that I was going to be making a docuseries featuring this vehicle prominently if he could get it to me before the end of 2021 because I need a truck now. And still, what do I get?
Nothing.
Where's the cricket sound effect? We don't have it yet. Soon we'll have a cricket sound effect, but that's what I got. Nothing. No response from Tesla. They are too big and too important to respond to little old me.
But the stock, the stock is 600, and it was 9 and change, right?
Well, didn't they just forward split it 4-for-1? So it's actually 2,400 bucks a share.
No, but it doesn't matter. But it was 3,600.
Oh, but before that it was 5,200.
It was 36. I think 4 for 1. No, it was 5 for 1.
Was it 5-for-1?
So there was 4,500 at the top.
Oh, okay.
It's now 3,000. So it's 2/3 of its value, and it's put other people in front of him as the world's richest man.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of TikToks and Instagrams of people installing the Tesla slate-colored solar panels that look like regular roof tiles that don't look like solar panels. Have you seen those?
Is Tesla own that?
Yeah, Tesla. That's Tesla. Yeah, that's Tesla.
Really?
Yeah.
They're going to put
Tesla solar panels.
on the car.
No, they're on the roof of your house. They're for homes.
Can you drive your car after or your house after that?
drive your house? Self-driving house.
And the other thing about the world we live in, things change now at light speed. Like everything's changing so fast. Like
Yeah.
look at Voxtur. I mean, look at their
Oh,
business.
did I forget to mention? Good a time as any to throw it in, but we are sponsored by Voxtur Analytics, VXTR on the TSXV and VXTRF on the OTCQB in the United States of America. Voxtur is digitizing the entire real estate transactional process from appraisal to mortgage origination to tax analysis. And they are doing so in a single platform at a fraction of the cost of what it used to take to do the full real estate conveyance
Including
exercise.
commissions.
There's no commissions with
You think
these guys. It's flat rate.
real estate agents would like to invest in this company?
Well, I think it would be an appropriate service to use for anybody who's an investor in real estate, or even if you're a homeowner. You can find out a piece of property you're looking at. You can find out what the taxes have been in the last 10 years
Right.
in their database, proprietary database. So they just bought another company that has deep data. And this is the thing. It's a roll-up strategy where they're taking all of these automated elements of the real estate transactional process, putting it all into a single platform, and offering it for use by everybody across the whole real estate transaction ecosystem. I'm a shareholder. I bought stock in the market, and then they asked me to help them out with spreading the word, and so they offered me an option, which I accepted, and so I have options, and I have shares in the company. They don't pay me any cash,
Sure.
and so, but pointing out that I am biased and I benefit to profit if the stock goes up. So consider all of my discourse on Voxtur as conflicted. And there, I believe I've disclosed sufficiently, and I seek safe harbor. Always wondered what that means. I mean, I know what it's in a boat when you seek a safe harbor. It's like the storm's coming up, the wind is starting to blow. You need to find out, get out of the wind.
Get out of the way, yeah.
If you can't handle the storm, get the hell out of the wind.
So you should watch which way the wind's blowing.
Yeah, if you can't handle the wind, get the hell out of the storm. Is it get the storm out of the wind? Wind out of the storm. Anyways, our next guest is disintermediating the financial system by creating a, what shall we call it? Decentralized financial platform. And this is a company that is named after Mr. Wonderful himself, Kevin O'Leary. Ben Samaru is the CEO, and here's what we talked about. Hey there, Midas Letter subscribers. My guest right now is Ben Samaru. He's the CEO of WonderFi Technologies, Inc. Ben, welcome.
Thanks, James. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. Ben, give us an overview. What does WonderFi Technologies do?
Sure. So our mission with WonderFi is to bring this new financial innovation of DeFi to the masses and to accelerate adoption. So really the big problem with DeFi right now is it's fragmented and it's very complicated. And there's an extremely steep learning curve and tons of obstacles for somebody that wants to get involved with DeFi. So we're tackling that.
Okay. And what is DeFi?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and that's probably a good place to start. So I'll talk a little bit about what is DeFi and why it's important. It's a new financial system. So DeFi offers financial products without a bank. And it's really easy to get caught in the technical jargon when you talk about DeFi or crypto. You may have had that experience before. I think it's a lot better to just focus on the value that DeFi offers. So a couple of simple examples to illustrate. One would be borrowing money instantly without needing permission of a bank or an intermediary. And another would be earning interest, say 4 or 5% on your assets instead of 0% that you're earning on cash in your bank account. So with DeFi, you can lend, borrow, earn interest, trade assets all through smart contracts that can be more efficient than traditional financial products in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, well, I sure would like to part company with my bank. I look at the statements every month, and the amount of fees involved for basic transactions is just outstanding. Isn't there going to be a great deal of resistance to a decentralized financial system by the financial system incumbents? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think you're right for sure. Just like there's been a lot of resistance over the years with Bitcoin from traditional financial institutions, the investment community, regulators. I think for me, it sort of all comes down to if DeFi offers a simpler, easier, cheaper solution, just like with technology over history, those incumbents will be forced to play, or they'll get left behind. And I think we've definitely seen that with institutional and corporate adoption of Bitcoin, and we're already starting to see it with DeFi. I think Bitcoin has paved a lot of the way for DeFi and has brought a lot of education and kind of adoption to some of the same targets that need to kind of get on board with DeFi. And so I think it's you mentioned around kind of the fees and issues with your bank, and I think that's certainly one of the big driving factors behind why people are using DeFi, is to sort of get away from that inefficiency. But really the movement behind DeFi, it's around fair and democratized access to finance. So transaction fees is one big part of that. There's also censorship, and we're using legacy infrastructure that's decades old, and potentially the biggest problem, I think, is that we've got over 2 billion people in the world that are unbanked for various reasons. And so in addition to solving or potentially solving the fees and efficiencies issues that you touch on, this really more accessible and open to everyone.
Mm-hmm. Well, that certainly sounds like it's got merit. I see you've got some sort of Canadian nameplate investors involved in the company, which sort of lends a mantle of credibility to the whole proposition. How are these people interested in the company, and is this indicative of a general movement towards this decentralized finance future?
Sure. So a little bit of background about myself and kind of our founding team. So we've been in the fintech and crypto space dating back to 2016. So we've brought a few different crypto products to market. We were part of the First Coin Capital team, which we built in 2017 and then sold to Galaxy Digital in 2018. And so we were also fortunate enough to be part of Galaxy's public listing process, which was one of the first, if not the first, public company in the world with crypto on its balance sheet. So a really important milestone for the industry. But I give that background because we've worked with some of the leading companies in the space, which has sort of led to some of this support that you're talking about. And so we're backed by Big Digital and Argo Blockchain and companies that we've been close with in the past. And one of the key names that's come in to support us, which we're extremely excited about the potential of, is Kevin O'Leary. So Kevin, he became a Bitcoin supporter relatively recently, and that was when the Bitcoin narrative shifted from Bitcoin as a currency to Bitcoin as a store of value. And as you may know, he's a big advocate for ethical Bitcoin mining and sustainability. And so he got connected with Argo, who's one of our investors, and that's how we sort of got introduced. But when we started talking through our conversation, we quickly realized that we had a shared view that DeFi is the next big thing, and it does have the potential to be green, democratized, sustainable, and really likely will be the biggest area of focus in finance over the next 5 or 10 years.
Sure. So to what extent is the success of your business reliant on regulatory cooperation in terms of recognizing cryptocurrencies as legal tender?
So that I'll talk about the regulatory environment a little bit. I think it's a really good question. I think the state of the regulatory environment right now has not quite caught up to DeFi. It's a new concept to have these types of financial products that are available, without a centralized institution offering them. And so I think regulators are just starting to look at DeFi. But Bitcoin as legal tender or digital currencies as legal tender is a good point, because it sort of shows how long the regulators take to catch up to things like Bitcoin, which I would say is at a high adoption level now, and now you're starting to see some jurisdictions look at it. And in North America, we're finally starting to see regulation of centralized crypto exchanges, and so we're definitely not quite there with regulation on the DeFi side, but it requires some coordination, potentially self-regulatory measures, because a lot of DeFi is based around smart contracts carrying out the functions that an intermediary would. So it all comes down to security, how it's designed, and how it's structured. So there'll be a kind of a big collaboration kind of effort there to get this kind of on board with the regulators. Yeah, it's interesting to me because the identity of a nation is tied up in its currency, and to me, it's like we have El Salvador on the one side who has said, okay, we recognize Bitcoin as legal tender. You've got China on the other extreme saying we have outlawed cryptocurrencies generally as a unit of trade. And in the middle, you've got European and American central banks preparing to roll out a digital crypto or a digital central bank currency, which would clearly be
competing with Bitcoin. So I'm just wondering, like, to what extent does that constitute a hurdle to be overcome versus it's inevitable and they're just going to have to get out of the way?
Yeah, I think it's definitely hard to predict what the different jurisdictions are going to do, and I think you raised some really good points. I think with DeFi, the true value proposition comes around, being able to put those assets to work and to earn interest on them, really. So there's a number of different ways that you can do that. So I think I see the DeFi industry kind of advancing along. There's obviously some connections into how different jurisdictions recognize, Bitcoin and other digital currencies as legal tender, and that's probably going to facilitate and potentially expedite the adoption. But really, this is a movement sort of on its own, and so we're really seeing a lot of we're really seeing a lot of talent coming into the space, and a lot of public figures like Kevin O'Leary. Mark Cuban is a big advocate for DeFi, and he's backed a company in the space. And I think it's the comparison that comes up quite a lot really is the Netscape Navigator comparison, which I know is a bit overused sometimes, but really when Netscape was released, it was at a point where there was lots of stuff being developed with the internet, but it was not sort of accessible for the average consumer. And it really took that piece of software to open things up to your average consumer. And I think there's a lot of buzz around DeFi and a lot of talk about it, but really it's just this small sliver that is using it right now. And it's crypto experts and crypto traders. And so I think the potential is really massive here, but it does require a tool, a product that is going to abstract, kind of take out all the complexities and really just make it so you can go on in a couple of clicks. You don't need to know the background and underpinnings of what's going on. Just like in the banking system, you don't need to know the intricacies of like how your wire gets sent or what type of system or rails are being used. And so that's really our view with the company and kind of how we're positioned within the space.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so is there a business for WonderFi without cryptocurrency being legal tender?
Yes, I would say so. I think really, and it goes back to sort of the shift in narrative around Bitcoin as a payment, or Bitcoin as a currency, to Bitcoin as a store of value. And obviously Bitcoin is just one, digital currency. But I think that's kind of where the narrative shifts, and it does, you do see adoption of Bitcoin as legal tender in some places. And that really is places that have issues with their currency and with their existing banking system. So as we see DeFi unfold and sort of evolve, you're going to see a lot of, potentially better tools than Bitcoin for people to get access to, spending, acquiring things, lending, borrowing, and really going back to kind of the core value propositions of DeFi. It is, how can I borrow, in 20 seconds without having to, without being at the mercy of the bank. And so for you or I, maybe that's easier, but, for somebody in a developing country that doesn't have a sophisticated banking infrastructure or has, corruption issues or things like that, it becomes really, it becomes very real.
Sure. Sounds to me like this is more of an Ethereum story than it is a Bitcoin story, with all the smart contracts that you make reference to. I'm always trying to explain to people that you can't lump Bitcoin and Ethereum into the same category, because Ethereum is a multifunction platform that also has digital currency as one of its elements, whereas Bitcoin is very clearly and simply a digital currency, nothing more, nothing less. So is that kind of the way that DeFi is going to head, is towards an Ethereum relationship as opposed to a Bitcoin one or other cryptocurrency?
right. So lots of DeFi is built on Ethereum right now. Going back to the transaction fees issue, which you talked about in traditional banking, there are transaction fee problems with Ethereum just due to sort of the volume and how it's architected. And so there's, you know, a lot of talent in the space is working on scalability solutions for Ethereum to bring transaction costs down. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Built more around Ethereum, but at the end of the day, Bitcoin is always going to be a part of the puzzle because it is the most established currency, and so you know, people typically want to have some exposure to Bitcoin because of what it's done, you know, over the last 10 years, and so you know, DeFi does open up ways for you to hold your Bitcoin and, you know, earn interest on it through various methods.
Sure, you bet. Okay, Ben, we're going to have to leave it there for now. I could literally, honestly talk to you for hours about this. It's fascinating to me on so many levels for so many reasons that I'm going to have you back sooner rather than later, if possible. Sure. And in the meantime, I'm just going to try to get myself positioned as an investor so I can be along for the ride. Thank you for your time today.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Great to meet you.
You bet. Bye for now. So that's interesting to me. It sounds like a platform that's built for cryptocurrency commerce. Although I was not exactly satisfied to his responses to my questions about his reliance on regulatory sort of help in making the recognition of cryptocurrencies legal tender. It kind of left me feeling like, well, that's still a bit of a risk factor for DeFi. However, the great thing is, if anybody can do it, it's going to be our friend Kevin O'Leary and his team at DeFi. So it's going to be a great story. We're going to have Kevin O'Leary on at some point. But let's move right along to our next guest, because Tal Hayek is the founder, one of the founders of AcuityAds, and he's the CEO. And we use AcuityAds because it is the most effective digital advertising platform, programmatic advertising platform that we've ever seen. And so here's Tal to tell us about it.
Okay, that should be good.
Hey there, Midas Letter subscribers, traders, investors, and viewers. My guest right now is Tal Hayek. He's the co-founder and CEO of AcuityAds Holdings, Inc., trades on NASDAQ under the symbol ATY and on the TSX under the symbol AT. Tal, how are you doing today?
It's amazing. Thank you for having me.
You know, this is a serendipitous reacquaintance because we first conversed back in 2014 when your company's shares were trading at 1/10 of what they are today. And so obviously you've had a great success. What is it that has driven this company's growth over the last 10 years?
Well, I think the main thing is that we developed an AI engine that its main job is to deliver positive return on investor for advertisers. And especially nowadays, advertisers are way more picky about where they're going to place their ad dollars and investments. And they do that where they can measure the ROI and they can get a positive ROI. And there's a company like Acuity that delivers all that in real time. Then clearly there's going to be more and more people that are interested in doing it that way.
Yeah, you bet. So I have to disclose that we are a customer of Acuity, and I became a customer of Acuity because the explanation of the Illumin system was so intriguing to me that I thought, okay, we have to try this. Now, how is this Illumin AI engine superior to existing programmatic advertising platforms?
I'm glad you asked that question, and thank you for being a customer. I would say it's like that. Illumin is what we call advertising automation. And the biggest problem that it solves is that there's a huge disconnect between the way marketers think and plan and the way that programmatic gets executed. Marketers think in stages, usually in 3 stages, anything from awareness stage to the engagement stage and to the conversion stage. And it's very important for them to send different messages along the way. But what happens in real time, the black boxes out there just repeat the same messages over and over and over and over again in order to satisfy some kind of a measuring tool. So Illumin came along and now gives the ability and the control for the advertiser and the marketers to create a consumer journey to plan it, and then to execute it, everything from one system. And you do all that with a very, very intuitive system that's very easy to use. You don't need an expert to use it, and it takes you minutes to set up a campaign. And that's the big problem we're solving there.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's certainly been our experience as well, is that your team has just sort of taken everything off of our plate and got us up and running as of, I think, the end of this week. All we had to do was sort of provide the creative, and the feedback from your team in terms of advising us on what's going to be more effective versus what's not based on their experience has been extremely helpful. So I understand that that's how you end up generating $27.5 million in revenue in first quarter financials. And now you've raised $57 million in your IPO round for NASDAQ. What is the purpose of that fundraise? What will you do with the proceeds?
Look, at the end of the day, our focus has been Illumin and is going to continue to stay Illumin. Now, we're doing most of it in an organic way, but there's components of Illumin that are in the roadmap that we can build or buy, and there's some things that are not programmatic on it. And when it's not programmatic, we're not experts. So it would be very nice to expedite and bring some experts from the other components that we want to bring in and complete Illumin faster.
Sure. Interesting. So then the Illumin system is it's not just a single proprietary platform, though you have a proprietary AI engine that's part of it. You have other components that help sort of identify appropriate responses from the audience and how to respond to those with varied ad presentation. Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah, so from a consumer point of view, every time, so let's say I'll give you an example. Let's say you go into a website, let's say you go to CNN.com and you see the content of the page load and you see the ad load and it looks like it's all loading at the same time, but that's not what's actually happening. What's actually happening, the content loads first and then CNN sends a bid request to an ad exchange asking for two things, a creative and a price. It goes into our system and we look at your consumer profile. What do we know about you? Geographical location, what you're interested in, demographic information. Then we go to a database of hundreds of advertisers. We pick, for example, a BMW ad, send it back to the exchange and say $5. If we're the highest bidder, we get to show you that ad. And the whole process I described now takes 50 milliseconds. So that's why to the consumer, it looks like it's all happening at the same time. But obviously it's done by algorithms that their job is to deliver that positive ROI that we talked about before.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so in terms of the landscape of ad service platforms that have such a highly sophisticated sort of AI engine behind it, who are your biggest competitors?
Well, I think it's all the usual suspects that have been on the DSP side in the past. There's quite a few US companies, most, but I think what's important to note is once we launched Illumin last year, we have a clear differentiator out there, and the excitement that we're seeing because of Illumin is through the roof. I mean, we launched it in Q4 of last year. We didn't even expect to have revenue until the second half of this year, and we already had 1.5 million running on it in Q4, 3.2 million running in Q1, Q2 looking amazing as well. So the adoption of Illumin by mostly the larger brands happening much faster than we expected ourselves. So we're very happy about what's happening.
Sure. So is that the outcome of the Illumin launch, is that you're dealing with a bigger and bigger sort of book of brands?
We are dealing with more brands, bigger brands, having more, I would say, more like the types of conversations we're having with them are different than having a little bit of their budget. Right now, we're talking to them about the consumer journey, about bringing in the awareness side of the campaign, about the engagement side, and about the conversion side of the campaign, and really bringing the consumer through a journey in order to get them to convert.
Right. So then if you were to sort of tell a marketer how to best use Illumin, and this is kind of a selfish sort of question on my part, what would you say to a marketer about, reshaping their expectations and their approach to maximize Illumin's abilities?
I would tell them, like, plan the consumer journey. It is so important today to, first of all, make your consumers aware of what you have to offer. That's the first stage. And then the second stage is you really need to educate them. So that's the engagement stage. Get them engaged. And once you do all that, this is the time now to try to get them to convert. And it's so important to think like that and set up your different creatives with the appropriate messages, depending on where your consumer is on the consumer journey.
Interesting. So then the system, the Illumin system, provides feedback to the customer, i.e. in this case myself, and gives me sort of metrics that I can say, oh, okay, this is where my target is in their journey. It's time to present conversion creative.
Exactly. You know exactly. So you set up the consumer journey in advance, and then you watch the consumers go through the journey that you set up. And not all of them go through the same journey because it's a trigger-based system. So if somebody clicks on something along the way that you set up, you would serve them something completely different. Depending on where the consumer is and what they're doing, you have a one-to-one conversation with them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. To what extent does the Illumin system mesh with Google Ads? I found that Google Ads are extremely problematic to use. The performance of them is not something that is easily verified with the analytics they provide. And so the ROI is always a nebulous target. You never really know what's working until you get the response in the conversion. So you waste a lot of money trying to find the audience. Does Illumin use Google at all, or does it stay right outside of the Google ad network?
Yeah, we're completely outside. So Illumin takes care of the open internet. So what is the open internet? Anything but what we call the walled gardens. It's mainly YouTube, Facebook is the two main ones that are in the walled gardens. And then we have the rest of the internet, and this is when Illumin comes in.
Well, that's great. Do you have guidance at all out for analysts on the future performance of the company at this point?
No, we don't provide guidance. We provided that we're seeing a 50% growth into Q2 of this year, overall revenue. We said that the Illumin adoption is going extremely well. So we said a few things, but we don't really provide full guidance at this point.
Sure. So your adjusted EBITDA was up 151% year over year. Is that rate of growth something that investors can expect to continue into 2022?
Well, all I can tell you is we always do our best to improve the financial results of the company. We have a great track record in that, and I do believe the best is yet to come.
Yeah, Tal, your judicious choice of words when responding to a question like that makes me feel better, both as a customer and an investor. So we're going to leave it there for now. Congratulations on your success. We're going to look forward to having you back on the show in a couple of months and see where we're at.
Sounds amazing. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for your time, Tal. Bye for now. So, can you believe they raised $57 million? Like, that's a pretty serious war chest. And man, I gotta say that I think I think this AI approach, where they're tracking when user responses to the ad, instead of going after them and serving them the same ad again and again, they say, okay, we're moving him along this journey, and so he's seen the ad. Now we're going to convince him to go engage with the more content. And so when he engages with the content, then we follow up with a conversion ad, an ad designed to convert, saying, well, okay, now you know what the story's like. Are you going to execute a buy on whatever it is that they're selling? I think it's brilliant, and that's why we're using it in our platform now.
And the stock's done well over the last 8-10 years, no?
Oh yeah, well, it's gone from $1 to $10,
$10
under $1. Wow. Yeah. So no, it's just listed on NASDAQ, and so they did that private placement to basically, very smart approach. Too many companies get a NASDAQ symbol, but they don't have any U.S. market support, and so they're just a feast for the shorts, and their stock gets slaughtered because there's nobody there to support it. When you go to NASDAQ, you better put some investors in through NASDAQ, and you better have a pretty powerful firm to defend against the short interest in the United States, which can decimate a firm, can absolutely decimate a firm.
We've seen it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, anyways, so finally, Ed, let's talk about what's happening in the copper market. Now, we saw the price of copper is now down 14%.
14, 15%. I don't know what it is right now, but I think it's around 426, 427.
Right, and so...
Down from a reaction high of 486.
And the price of lumber, the commodity price of lumber is halved from its high back in May.
Yeah.
And so...
But oil, no back off.
Unched.
$72.
Unched.
And that, in my experiences, when we get problems in the economy, it's always because oil starts moving up. Oil's still the most widely used commodity
on the planet. Well,
and
every
so
day.
Everybody has an aversion to oil. And one of the top billionaires said the best value right now is in oil equities, because everybody thinks oil's going to be left behind.
Right.
Probably not.
Well, I think it's got a few more runs to the top. I mean, right now, there's the total globalized electric fleet is still below.
What is it, 5%?
Not even.
It's nothing.
Yeah, and but this for copper, this is intriguing to me because the copper.org, which is the copper research group, they're predicting that by 2027, the global demand for copper will rise by 2,700 kilotons, based on the electrification of the global fleet. So when the Fed and the mainstream media come out and start making comments like, oh, the bloom is off the rose for copper, it's going the other way now because demand is weak in China, that's a very short-term view.
Look, it went up exponentially. Now it's having a correction. As long as I think we can hold $3.90, $4, I would say, which is about a 20% correction.
Yeah.
Around $4.
Yeah.
And that's when you start getting worried about bear market.
Yeah.
And, they say 20% correction.
Sure.
So we'll see. But I mean, going green, you need copper.
So going green, you need to go red. Yeah. And by buying copper, you're in the red. No, but anyways, I bought, full disclosure, I bought 100,000 shares of U.S. copper yesterday. I'm on the bid for 100,000 today. It looks like I might be getting filled here. So for me, this is a buying opportunity. It is an absolute kiss from the gods of prosperity and investing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, obviously we're conflicted because now we own a lot of copper company operating in, they're drilling right now.
They're drilling.
U.S. copper. You own a lot of shares.
I own tons of shares.
So basically everything we say should be regarded in the context of advertising.
But we believe in copper. We believe
in copper.
You can't transfer energy on copper. Interestingly enough, Namibia has, they're starting to get a little jumpy about companies coming into their country.
Well, this is why I don't really understand the backing off in the copper commodity price. Peru is the #2 copper producer in the world.
Right.
Peru has just fallen to an elected government that has said, we are going to require mining companies to give up 70% of the profits back to the Peruvian government. Now, what is that going to do for foreign investors in mining in Peru? They're going to leave.
They're not coming in.
So what's going to happen to Peru's status as #2 copper producer?
Well, these things, we're in a world where things change in glacial speed, right? Because, you've already got producers, you got this, you got that.
Unless they change overnight.
Yeah. Apparently, there's 2 or 3 mines that are still going to come on stream over the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Which will balance things out, keep things in a bit of a state of equilibrium.
Right.
But nothing's coming on for years after that.
Right.
So I think Goldman Sachs will even say, we've had an exceptional move, but we're going to have a spectacular move in copper as we get down the road here.
Sure. So let's go back to our list of questions.
Okay. Yeah, we got a few questions.
There's a writer, viewer who goes by the handle Queen David. How do I find a good broker to trade with?
Well, David, the broker the broker you get.
Oh, boy. I'm not going to... Well, Dave, how do you find a good broker to trade with? That's a really interesting question. But a good test is to... Well, I mean...
Look, I know there's good and there's...
There's bad.
Wow.
So there's guys that will use your account to fill up CPCs for small change and put you into things that they make an end on and won't really have your interest at heart. they're trading your account with their interest first and foremost.
Yeah.
That's 90% of brokers in my experience.
What about a discount? Why wouldn't you open a discount broker? Or open an account online?
Trade directly. Well, okay, so I've got BMO online.
Yeah, so do I.
And half the time, BMO online does not execute a trade in a timely fashion. I have lost.
What?
I've lost
It
tens
never
of
happens
thousands
to me.
on BMO.
Yeah.
Really?
Wait, do you have money in your account?
Well, not anymore. I took it all out because I don't trust the BMO Investor Line platform. It doesn't work, and if you call tech support, you're on hold for 2 hours during
but
market hours.
Maybe it's because of your size.
My size? What? It's too
Well,
big?
that's my size. I don't know.
small.
I don't know. You know.
Right.
But depending on how much money you have, I think if you don't have, you know, the money's all relative. If you have no money, you know, $100 is a lot of money. If you've got a lot of money, you probably need a financial advisor. But if you're looking at just trading the market, and you got, I don't know, some amount,
Yeah.
50 grand.
So to answer your question there, Queen David, how do you find a good broker to trade with? You probably need to lose a lot of money before you find a good broker to trade with, because you won't know if a broker's trading with your interest first and foremost or their interest first and foremost. But generally, brokers work for investment banks, and they're instructed to sell this, which the bank is making money off of, and they'll make something off of. So when you call them up and say, I want to buy some shares in this company, what do you think? They're going to say, oh, no, that's no good, because they don't make anything off of that except a measly commission. And they'd rather sell you something that they have a bigger interest in. So that's the key, is to find somebody who's going to trade with your interest at heart. And I can't tell you who that is, because I just assume, no offense to any brokers beyond the obvious offense inherent in what I'm about to say, but 90% of brokers are thieving bastards, right? Like, I mean, come on. Which is, you know, I have a few brokers that I communicate with and I use for different things, but I don't look to them for ideas. Put it that way. I look to them to execute trades.
Unfortunately, if you're in the business of suggesting what's a good thing to put money in, there's an inherent bias in everything you say.
Sure.
Because you want to self-serve your views.
Right. But which should always be disclosed. If you're an investment professional, you should say, well, I think you should buy this, but full disclosure, if you buy it, I make 2% commission, or I own a portion of this company, or I, you know, have some other interest. Anyways, so I hope that answers your question, David. Somebody who goes under the handle G says, do you think Elon Musk bought more Bitcoin before his latest tweet, where he says Tesla only sold approximately 10% of holdings to confirm Bitcoin should be liquidated easily without moving market? Do you think Elon Musk bought Bitcoin ahead of his tweet where he's basically giving it a boost?
The only thing I sort of know is he said, you know, we're going to accept Bitcoin, and then after a couple of months or whatever, he said, you know what, we've sold some of Bitcoin, but maybe that was why he sold it. He wanted to see how liquid it is, which I believe him. And but I think he's kept a substantial amount. But you know, there's a potential death cross forming on Bitcoin. Death cross.
That sounds a bit dramatic.
Well, it's when the 100-day moving average
crosses
breaks
the 50.
below the 50.
Right.
And if it goes up through it, it's called the golden cross.
Right.
But if it's the other way, it's the death cross.
Right. So that was the death cross appeared last week.
It's right there. Okay. And that's when it plunged, but then they spike it back.
Oh, it's coming back.
And this 3840 is big resistance.
Right.
And
so if you trade a large enough position in a thinly traded asset like crypto, Bitcoin, you can actually create you can make the technicals respond to your trading action to elicit a behavior on the part of all the other investors involved in it who trade via technicals.
Yeah, but if you have that much money, why would you do it? Like,
just because that makes you feel good about it. Look at me, I move markets.
I should be running a country.
Yeah, I need my own country now. Anyways,
it's
okay,
wild.
Let's move along to the questions.
Hey,
so the bottom line is we don't know, and it would be disingenuous and irresponsible to say what we think. Whether Elon basically front ran his trade, which that would be called, and if he did, It would be a dumb move on his part because he's under scrutiny by the SEC all the time.
Yeah.
Mind you, because he's Elon Musk, he never really has more to look forward to than a slap on the wrist. So it's 2 levels of justice in the United States, and everybody should know that. That's all that matters. Herman Hartner wants to know, what do you think about prospects for mining in Mexico, since there are already some changes happening, like the president being socialist? Yeah, well, mining in Mexico, I mean, I have grown more and more cynical towards investing in any mining operation that's not in a safe jurisdiction, i.e. Canada, the United States, the G7.
Mexico has always been looked upon. There's a lot of mining going on in Mexico. Mining is huge in silver.
But across Latin America, there is impetus towards greater control over the proceeds of mining by Latin American companies generally. There is a broad movement towards more socialist thinking, as evidenced by the election of Pedro Castillo in Peru. You know, the election of, can't remember the guy's name.
Well, in Venezuela, and then Bolivia.
Venezuela remains socialist.
That's because there's such a disparity, a greater disparity of haves and have-nots. And you go down to South America, and you've been there, I've been there. If you've got a lot of money,
you better not flash it.
Well, you don't want to flash it, but you live pretty good. Like I met a lawyer there 15 years ago in Peru, in Lima, and she got in the back seat of the car with me, and I thought, who's going to drive the car? She said, my driver. This is a lawyer. She said, I'm not going to drive. Why would I drive?
Was her name Greta?
I think it was.
Well, that's Greg. So Greta, that's hilarious. I know Greta. She was my lawyer whenever I do anything in Peru.
Well, I think that was sort of, she was a liaison between the Canadian.
Yeah, well, she comes up. She used to come up here every PDAC. I think anyway, she's a great lawyer. Not to get off topic too much, but so what do we think about mining prospects in Mexico? Mexico's got some great mining deposits and some great mines that are operated successfully and have done very well for investors.
But there's also the drug element, the cartels. You got to be in. You don't want to be in that region, do you? Or do you?
The cartels are everywhere.
Yeah,
So
are they?
There are instances where the mine's product has been forcibly taken from them by a cartel of bandits. And so, yeah, I don't consider mining in Mexico as attractive as I do mining in Canada particularly. I particularly like Ontario and Quebec because I live in Ontario. I can fly, drive anywhere and see the mine in a day. But I'm also not a big speculator in mining anymore because of the price manipulation that happens in the commodities market, which determines to large part the price action in metals. Now, you have got exceptions. There's been a few great discoveries in Canada in the last little while, and the stocks have just taken off. Great Bear Mining,
the one
Gold
on
Spot.
Newfoundland, Newfound Gold.
Newfound Gold. And actually I just saw one recently. E79 Mining just announced some spectacular hits. And actually, you know, our old friends at Pasofino Gold announced some initial drill results, and they were spectacular. Now, at this point, I have to disclose that
You're talking about vein?
Yeah, I own warrants in Pasofino, so they expire in September. But so they word the press release so conservatively that I almost didn't bother reading it because the headline is Pasofino Gold announces results of its first 4 new holes at Tuzan. And I thought, well, if it was a great hit, they usually put the best result in the headline. But they didn't do that. But step out hole TDC 179 returned 22 meters grading 2.23 grams per ton gold from 63 meters down hole. A second interval of 126 meters grading a 0.05 grams per ton gold from 102 meters in depth. And step out hole number TDC 174 contained 28.4 meters grading 2.58 grams per ton gold from 318 meters down hole. These are great results. These are fantastic
because of the
results.
widths. The widths are huge, right?
Well, they're
that's
great.
why this thing's going to get bought out. I mean, they've already got 4 million ounces.
Well, and Liberia has a carried interest, and the only downside with this company, in my view, is it's in Liberia, where government can change overnight, and your mine can be, suddenly in the hands of others. And so that's always the risk when investing in places like, I'm going to say Mexico now, and certain African countries. There's a 50-50 shot that the government is going to be the same government at the beginning of your investment as it is midway or even halfway or even at the end of your investment. It's almost guaranteed it won't be. So any investment in mining anywhere in the world is a 50-50 shot, in my view, at best.
It's a risky proposition going into a strange country.
Yeah.
And saying, hey, we'll take out your resources and,
right.
You know,
we'll give you some.
I know.
We'll leave a little on the table for you.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, that's our show. We're out of time today, and we appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Apparently, YouTube has now, and Facebook are now stopping our show from being, our notifications from going out. So you need to subscribe to our notifications on our website if you want to get a notification every time we publish a new show or a new article. And don't rely on Google. Google has started to display ads, competing company videos in our own proprietary video stream. That's how predatory Google has become. That's why I think very important.
They can't get enough.
If anybody in your jurisdiction is asking you to sign a petition to examine Google in the context of anti-competitive behavior, be sure to sign it. They are operating a monopoly, and they are a corporate predator, and they'll put your local companies out of business in due course if we don't do something about it. So everybody needs to do what they can against Google and Facebook. Big tech needs to be brought to heel. That's all there is to it. That's our show for today. Don't forget to write if you have any questions.
If you want to bring them to heel, you should buy yourself a healer.
Hey, if you want to go out on a date, you should dial 911. Bad cop, no donuts. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.
So long.